Mega Man X3 is an interesting game to talk about. X1 was the series finding its voice. X2 was the series being confident in that voice. X3 is the series trying to do more and not doing it well. This isn't to say X3 is bad. It's not, it's actually still kinda good. I'd say it's better than X1. But it's a game where pretty much everything new doesn't work as well as it should. And that's frustrating. Now then, this is the 17th video of my Mega Man retrospective, and the 3rd in my X-Series retrospective. You don't need to watch any of the classic videos, but I'd recommend watching the X1 and X2 videos, since I'll be comparing X3 to those two a fair bit. X3 starts a little bit after X2. Sigma's rebellion was crushed once more, but some Mavericks still lingered. A genius Reploid scientist named Dr. Doppler finally identified the virus that was causing Reploids to go Maverick, and he called it the Sigma virus. And with this discovery, he created a cure for the Sigma virus, causing all Mavericks to return to normal. These cured Reploids created Doppeltown, named in honor of Dr. Doppler, and it was a peaceful and utopian city. Months later, Reploids began to turn Maverick again, and it was revealed that his cure was a fake. Dr. Doppler declared war on the world, and X and Zero were dispatched to infiltrate Doppeltown and bring Dr. Doppler to justice. Hours later, Maverick Hunter HQ was under attack, and X and Zero returned to HQ to defend it. We get launched into the intro stage, as X takes on a spy copter and Zero slashes it out of the sky. Zero goes on ahead while X handles the inside. Now then, X3's intro stage is as great as the previous two. It does its job perfectly, teaching you the basics of Mega Man. A good bit into the level you find a Maverick Hunter named Mac, but it appears he's turned Maverick and captures X. Well, what do we do now? Hell yeah. Zero becomes a playable character. I'll touch on him a bit more later, but for now, this is absolutely sick. Zero plays very similarly to X, but he's got a bigger hitbox, a bigger health bar, and his charge shot is very different. When fully charged, he has 2 charge shots and does a slash with the Z-Saber. You take down Mac and rescue X, and you continue the stage as him. The boss is Ma the Giant, and you take him down easily. After that, you have the stage select, which is identical to X2's stage select, which is fine. So you pick a stage. For the stages, X3s have some nice highlights. Take Giant Dam where water is rushing down and you're climbing up the sewers facing the water rushing onto you. You then go underwater and either go up top and face the waves, which can be destroyed with the Frog Ride armor, or go underneath and face the spikes. It's pretty darn cool. Safari Park is also a pretty cool stage. It doesn't have much in terms of set pieces, but I just think a safari is a pretty cool idea for a level. Shipyard also has a cool set piece where you go inside a battleship and destroy the generator, so it sinks and rotates 90 degrees, so you have to move upward instead of forward. Honestly though, that's about it in terms of stages I thought were cool or interesting. It's not like the other stages were bad or anything, they just didn't click with me in any way, and I don't have anything to say on them. And honestly, I think the X2 stages are a good bit better than X3's. In a similar way, heart tanks and sub-tanks are still here, and they function the exact same. Just like the stages, I have nothing to say about them. In X2, they were hidden in pretty cool ways, like behind a bar wang you had to quickly destroy, while kicking up a bleaker as a reward for not getting caught or above a bed of spikes. X3 doesn't really have any of that. I'd say they're hidden much more like in X1, where it's just in little side areas that aren't much of a reward. Cause in X1 you just explored a bit and found them. I think they're better in X2, where they require more do-or-die decision making and engaging with the level mechanics. That's not bad, and I can see why someone would like it. Personally though, I just find it less interesting and less cool than X2. As is tradition by now, there are 4 brand new armor pieces to collect. Overall, I think the 3rd armor is about equal to the 2nd armor, and definitely better than the 1st armor. The first armor piece I found was the foot parts in the Frozen Town. These foot parts are a clear upgrade from the 2nd armors, as you can dash horizontally, just like last time, and you can also dash upward. In the X2 video, I mentioned how I loved having more aerial control with those game's foot parts and speed burner. This is basically that, but even better, and I love it. Definitely a top tier armor part. The next armor piece I got was the arm parts in the Safari Park. I am a bit torn on this one. On one hand, X2's arm parts were absolutely busted and I loved it. On the other hand, X2's arm parts were absolutely busted and it needed some balance changes. X3 does just this, and of course it's more balanced than it was last time. But the second arm parts were busted in your favor, and that meant it was pretty fun to use. So overall, I'm mixed on this, but leaning towards positive. A massive screen nuke is always cool. The next armor piece I got was the body parts in the power control center. These body parts reduce the damage you take by 50%, and when X's hit, a blue defense shield comes up and damage is further reduced by 25%. Overall, I really like this, and this is probably the best body part yet. The first armor's body parts simply reduce damage, and the second armor's body parts did that while also giving a pretty lame screen nuke. While X3 could have tried to do the Giga Crash again, but actually good this time, they went for something new, and what they did is pretty interesting. The most interesting thing is that this body part sounds absolutely busted, but in practice it really isn't. You're still taking damage, just a bit less. Finally, there's the head parts. Just like the previous two games, these head parts are pretty mid. I think these head parts are the most useful yet, as you see a layout of the stage and where all the collectibles are at the beginning of the stage. This doesn't really do much for me though, since this is a pretty bad map and you only see it once at the beginning of the stage and I have no clue where I am. Maybe if there was a blue square denoting where X is, that'd be a bit more helpful. But as it stands, this map is only useful if you already know the stage well enough to know where these red squares are, and you have to take a picture with your phone, or in the old days draw the entire map yourself. Overall, the third armor is probably the best armor yet, with the best foot parts and body parts, arm parts of debatable quality, and the best, yet still useless head parts. However, here's something interesting. In the 4 stages that don't have Dr. Light capsules, they instead have pink capsules to grant enhancements to the already existing armor pieces. I'm a bit torn on these chips, but I'm leaning towards the negative side. Now, on paper, having enhancements for the armor pieces sounds great, and the enhancements themselves are fantastic. A double air dash, 75% damage reduction compared to 63%, automatic charge shots, refilling health / sub-tanks when standing still. The issue comes with the fact that I don't think the game tells you can equip one of these, and if you equip one you can never equip the other 3, and that it locks you out of the gold armor, which gives you all 4 at once. Overall, I don't like this. Again, the enhancement chips are cool, but if the cons were laid out in front of you before committing, it'd be so much better. But even if they did that, I still wouldn't grab them. I'd rather just get the gold armor later on. Hell, that's why I have so little footage of the enhancement chips and their pink capsules. On the gold armor, I love it, and it's the best armor in the series so far. First, look at it. It's absolutely beautiful in both the sprite work and official art. Secondly, it's busted. As I just stated, it gives you all 4 armor pieces, plus all 4 enhancement chips, so naturally it's overpowered as all hell, and you tear through the castle stages with it. The enhancement chips are not the only new collectibles in the stages though. I never mentioned this before, but there were these neat little mechs called Rhine armors in X1 and X2. Specifically, a green version in Snow Mountain, a red version in Forest in Sigma Castle 2, and the rabbit in the Energen Crystal Mine, the Dinosaur Tank, and X Hunter Stage 3. X3 takes this and expands upon it by having 4 ride armors collectible throughout the stages and allows you to use any of the ones you've collected in these little pods. There are 4: Chimera, Kangaroo, Hawk, and Frog. The Chimera ride armor is the most unique, as you must steal it from the weapons factory and it's the first unit to grab. It's the template for the other 3, so again, you gotta grab it first. The Kangaroo ride armor is found in the Giant Dam, the Hawk ride armor is found in the Shipyard, and the Frog ride armor is found in the Airborne Aircraft Carrier. Now then, this all sounds really cool. Being able to collect and use these massive tanks whenever you want sounds awesome, doesn't it? But honestly, I really did not use this much and I didn't care for it. These ride armors are pretty situational, which probably explains why they were only in a few sections of a few stages in previous games. When you have them available on demand, that doesn't make me use them any more than I used to. I still rather play as X because he's so much more mobile and smaller than these massive clunks of metal. The only real upside is the increased firepower, but it's not really needed. It's not like these enemies take a millennium to kill. There are only about 3 times I used ride armors in this game. When I first got the Chimera armor, I used it to get rid of these crates dropping and then drop the ride armor for the heart tank. I used the Hawk ride armor to break through this wall for the heart tank in the shipyard, and I used the Frog ride armor during Doppler Stage 2 because why not? Hell, I'm not even sure I used the Kangaroo ride armor in my main playthroughs. So yeah, these ride armor are very cool conceptually, but they're just so situational I never feel the need to use them. Something else I nearly forgot about was the Nightmare Police. After 2 stages, Dr. Doppler sends out Bit and Bite to kill you. Bit will appear at any of your 3rd, 4th, or 5th stages, while Bite will appear in the remaining 3 stages you go to. Personally, I don't have any real opinion on this. I could go with either this set of extra bosses or the X-Hunters, they're equal to me. I guess I find the X-Hunters more compelling as characters, especially with Sergei's among their ranks, but that's about it. As bosses, I think they're good. They're very challenging, almost too challenging one can say. Bit is definitely the easier one as he just dashes across the arena. Bite is harder as he'll send something out, it clings to a wall and then Bite will punch it. If you're in the way, you'll slam into the wall, onto the ceiling, and Bite will punch you again and you lose like 40% of your health during this attack. And it's kinda hard to dodge since I think whatever Bite sent out was messing with my jumps and wall kicks. If you simply defeat these two, they'll leave and retreat at the castle stages. If you defeat them with their weaknesses though, they die for good and you fight different castle bosses in their place. The final member of the Nightmare Police is Vile Mark II. Dr. Doppler has somehow brought Vile back from the dead and he has a new blue color scheme, which looks nice, although nothing compares to the iconic purple. To fight Vile, you need to find his capsule in either the shipyard, which is where I found him, the power control center, or the frozen town. Once you go inside the capsule, Vile has its own stage that you go through and it's kinda tough. Then you fight Vile. First you take down his ride armor and then you fight the man himself. I think his boss is appropriately difficult, but nothing too difficult. I was able to beat him just fine. Just like Bit and Bite, if you defeat him normally you'll be facing off against him in the castle stages. If you take him down with his weakness, he's gone for good. Regardless, once you defeat him here, you have to escape from the stage, as Vile rigged the whole place with bombs. Probably the best set piece in an X game so far, or maybe the entire franchise so far. There are plenty of obstacles and enemies in your way as you gotta quickly maneuver your way through them and make it to the exit capsule with only seconds to spare. So yeah, overall, I like the Nightmare Police. They're cool. I don't like them any more than the X-Hunters, but I don't like them any less. I think the last thing for me to touch on in the stages is Zero. Zero has made a kinda full playable character in this game. You can play as him in the intro stage and regular gameplay. If you go to the weapon select screen and hit the bumpers, you can ask Zero for some assistance and you'll swap to him. On paper, this sounds pretty awesome. Zero's been a main character since X1 and he's been pretty much the only guy on your side besides background characters we don't know. So to be able to play as him is great. However, this just was not executed well. Zero is actually pretty useless. He does hit like a tank, but in exchange he's made of glass. He takes a lot more damage than X and he can't collect anything. Heart tanks, sub-tanks, ride armors, or armor capsules. Worst of all, if you die as him once, he's done for the rest of the game. I can understand why they did this. Zero is an exceptionally strong fighter within the series lore, and if they made him too powerful, then you'd never play as X. But the solution they ended up with just means no one wants to play as him instead. It's why I have so little footage of Zero beyond the Zero project. I just played as X in both of my vanilla playthroughs because it wasn't worth all these drawbacks. Also because I didn't want to die as Zero and I wanted him to be in the credits alongside X. As for the bosses, I'm kinda mixed on them. Some of these bosses are pretty good without their weakness, like Blast Hornet, Blizzard Buffalo, Toxic Seahorse, and Neon Tiger. Special shout out to Toxic Seahorse for being very challenging. But then you get Tunnel Rhino, who's just a pushover with the X-Buster. Dude, what the hell happened here? When you bring weaknesses into the picture, I'd say these bosses are pretty equal to previous X bosses. Of course, some bosses fall into Spark Mandrill syndrome, like Blast Hornet or Toxic Seahorse, but some of them are still real fights like Crushed Crawfish, Neon Tiger, or Blizzard Buffalo. So overall, I think this set of Mavericks is slightly better than X1 set and X2 set. On the weapons, I don't have too much to say because I never really used them. Tornado Fang is used a fair bit to break through some obstacles, particularly the Chimera Ride Armor, the Arm Part, and the Heart Tank in the Frozen Town. Triad Thunder is also useful for collecting some items, mainly the Heart Tank in the Quarry, the Head Parts, and the Hawk Ride Armor. Ray Splasher is a pretty interesting weapon as you fire a lot of bullets across a wide area, and is pretty similar to the Shadow Armor's Arm Parts. Spinning Blade also looks great on X, but it's also a good weapon, with X firing a disc that splits in two and comes back around. And Frost Shield is probably the best one, as when you kill an enemy with it, they have a high chance to drop health ups. Only in the SNES version for some reason though. I don't know why they bothered changing this in the 5th gen version, and it just makes sub-tank grinding more tedious than in the 4th gen version. One final thing I'd like to mention is how I played this game. I played the game once on SNES, a second time on PS1, and a third time with the Zero Project. I'll get to the Zero Project later, but I bring this up now because the 5th gen version has intro FMVs that contain the franchise's first lyrical song. The 5th gen version also has a brand new OST, with CD Redbook audio compared to the chiptunes of the SNES version. I must admit, it was a little cursed to hear all these new sounds come from X3, but it did grow on me throughout the playthrough. I think I still prefer the SNES sound, but I do like the PS1 sound as well. Regardless, here are some of my favorite songs from both versions. But I think it's time I tackle the Zero Project. The Zero Project was created by Justin 3009, and many say it's basically a fix to X3. So I played it twice for this video, one run as Zero and one New Game Plus run as X. And I think I enjoyed my time with this version more than I did the main versions. To go over the biggest changes, Zero has been implemented as a full playable character. Again, in the original you could only swap him in a stage, he couldn't fight bosses or mini bosses, and he couldn't collect anything. This is all fixed. Zero can also use special weapons now, although he depletes his weapon ammo at double the rate X does. Some items were also changed so that fewer backtracks are necessary, mainly these boulders in the quarry. Originally, they could only be brought down using a charged Triad Thunder. Now the Z-Saber can take them down as well, cutting down on that backtrack. Sub-tanks were also changed. In my X1 video, I mentioned how it was annoying that the entire sub-tank was drained whenever you use one, regardless of how much you actually needed. This has been fixed, and the sub-tanks function more similarly to how they do in the Zero games. Finally, I think the biggest change was how the enhancement chips work. Of course, you can still use only one at a time, but you cannot collect all 4 of them and still get the golden armor. So what I did was grab the head part chip and then go through the entire game as normal, but whenever I needed to refill health, just swapped X and sit there while he refilled health. I know this sounds pretty simple and not something I need to say, but I just felt so big brain doing it. The golden armor capsule was also changed, and there are now 2 ways to spawn it. The first way is the normal way. Obtain all the collectibles besides the enhancement chips and drop down this pit at full health and cling onto the wall. The second way is to collect all the enhancement chips and drop down this pit and cling onto the wall. Collecting any other collectible and being at full health is optional. Once you go inside the capsule, X becomes Gold Armor X and Zero becomes Black Zero. I don't need to tell you this, but I'm going to anyway. This is absolutely awesome. With Black Zero, he gets all the usual enhancements: increased damage, increased defense, and faster movement. His Z-Saber also changes color to purple, which fits with the black style better than having the green Z-Saber. I also think getting Gold Armor X this way is better than the original game. Because there, you just got a bunch of random upgrades you probably didn't even know about because everyone says to just not go over the pink upgrade capsules. Here, you really should find the pink upgrade capsules because they are useful, but you can't have all 4 upgrades at once. And if you're patient enough, you can get all 4 upgrades at once for the final levels. I love it. Overall, the Zero Project is great. Massive props to Justin 3009 for making something so great. Make some great changes, and whenever I replay X3, it's gonna be this version. Finally, it's time for the castle stages. I don't have much of an opinion on them. I think they're as good as the previous two castles. The boss of the first stage is interesting, as if you didn't defeat Bit and Byte with their weakness, they come back as God Car Machine Oenari. I am sorry, but what kind of name is that? Does that mean something in another language? Alright, from my limited and brief research, it appears to have something to do with God. Anyway, this fight is interesting, and Bit and Byte have combined into one. It's not too hard to fight. If you did defeat Bit and Byte with their weaknesses earlier, you instead have to fight the Press Disposer. Doppler Stage 2 is interesting, as it gets some neat changes depending on if you defeated Vile. If you did not defeat him with his weakness, then the stage will be pretty banged up, and you won't have to deal with the mini-boss, and you fight Vile at the end. If you did defeat Vile with his weakness earlier, then the stage looks just fine. Part of the stage will be flooded, and you'll have to fight the mosquitoes. Both the regular game and the Zero project, if you defeat this boss Zero, he'll take some heavy damage and be unable to help you throughout the rest of the game. He'll also give access to Z-Saber, which you can use after your full charge shot. It's very powerful and can 2-hit bosses. If you don't take on the mosquitoes as Zero, then Zero will remain alive and X won't get the Z-Saber. This is what I normally do because I like having Zero in the credits alongside X. And the boss of this stage is the Volt Kurgil, who's easy to take down. The third stage has the Boss Rush and Dr. Doppler. Doppler is a pretty interesting fight, as if you hit him normally, he'll create a barrier and start healing. So the only good way to damage him is to hit him while he's attacking you. Found that pretty interesting. The fourth stage is the fight against Sigma, because he came back somehow. The two fights against him are actually pretty tough, and I like them a lot. The first phase is kinda simple, cling onto a wall, keep on spamming Spinning Blade. He hits like a tank though, so that's where the challenge comes in. The second phase is the hardest and the most fun. Sigma has a massive new body named Kaiser Sigma. This boss is probably the hardest in the X series yet because his hitbox is so small. It's like a tiny part right above his head and through the exhaust. This sounds kinda tedious and badly designed, and I can understand that sentiment. Personally though, I love it because it's so much fun hitting that small window. He also isn't weak to any special weapons. His weakness is a charged X-Buster shot or the Z-Saber. After that, Sigma takes the form of the Sigma virus once more and lava rises towards you while you climb up to avoid it. You hit a dead end and Sigma corners you before Dr. Doppler comes down and takes the Sigma with him as he dies. I believe Zero does something similar if you beat the game and he's still alive. And so X, and maybe Zero, retreat and watch Doppler's fortress crumble. X wonders why all this fighting must take place for the third game. And it appears his destiny is set in stone as he must fight against Zero. Mega Man X3 is a very interesting game to me. I see a lot of people think it's just mid or nothing special. Honestly, I don't agree with that. X3 tries some great new things, enhancement chips, ride armors, and a playable Zero. However, none of these ideas were executed that well, and it leads to X3 kinda just getting left behind compared to the previous two games. Personally, I still really like the game and would probably play it above X1, but where it fails, it does fail, and I'd still play X2 over this game. But X3 is still a good game and one I can replay any day, and the Zero project takes the game and refines it further, turning it into a solid S-tier game right alongside X2 and X4. But with all this said, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.